1971 to 1974. Strat-O-Matic Excel Carryover League. Brought to you by the Shrimp Trawler.
Game 420, Blue Jays at Orioles.
Welcome back, baseball fans. 1971-74 Carryover League. We have a series today in the American League East between the Toronto Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles, and it's been, wow, a wild year in the American League East in a timeline that's a little curious because the Blue Jays, as you know, do not exist until 1977. So we put together a team for them, and this team just is one of the tougher outs in the sport, folks. This is one of the best constructed, fictional, if you want to call it, teams in the timeline. The right combination of players who are playing exceptional baseball. Let's just take a look at this wild American League East because it's the most interesting. Your American League East standings. Here we are. Look at these records, folks, between Baltimore, New York, and Toronto. By the way, don't want to miss the Yankees here. Early 70s wasn't very kind to the Yankees, as you might know. They were a 500 club renovating the stadium. Many years before Mr. Steinbrenner arrives, they weren't very good. But they find themselves in the middle of this, and poor Boston, who's a pretty good ball club, has some division titles in the last couple of years to show for it, but bad, horrible, horrendous luck this year, and they're the guy getting knocked around by these teams. What you're seeing here, this is the interleague play record, of which you only play best of 3. You only have, at the most, 12 games against the National League, and they're +8. That means they're either 8-0, 9-1, and 10-2 against the National League. So they beat the crap out of the National League this year, which is the Mountain Time Zone, which isn't very good. And this +9 here is against the Midwest and West, two teams who have been lagging all year. So the East has had a favorable schedule, and it shows, folks. My goodness, it shows. But even with all that being said, there's not a good logical explanation for why the Blue Jays are 16-10, because you do have these other expansion teams, Ohio players right there. You have Seattle Mariners right there. Of course, you got all these expansion teams over here, you know. You got the Florida Marlins over here. There's not a good logical way to describe why Toronto is so great, other than they're just hitting everything this year, folks. They're just hitting everything. So, heavyweight battle between Baltimore and Toronto, which is not how it was drawn up in the preseason schedule, I guess. Game 1 in Toronto, Mike Cuellar against Carl Morton. Put on waivers by the Colorado Rockies a year ago. Carl Morton. Anyway, top of the second, Brooks Robinson double, a sac fly by Tom Chopay in this one. Bottom of 2, we get a 2-run homer by Yvonne Morel. Who? Yvonne Morel, 2-run homer, 2-1 Blue Jays. Baltimore ties it in the 5th. RBI single by Buford. Then you get an RBI single in the bottom half by Milt May. An insurance run, two-run single, or a single and a run scores in double play. Tim Foley homer. He only had 2 homers in the entire season. He's hit 2 home runs in 2 games of this series. It's a 5-2 final. Mike Cuellar is confused about what just happened. He went 7 innings, giving up 9 hits, 5 runs, 4 were earned, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. Morton ended up going 7 1/3, 8 hits and just 2 runs. Toronto beats Baltimore 5-2 in Canada. Game 2 in Toronto. Final score, Toronto 2-1. They put you to sleep. They just hypnotize you. It's like you can't get up for beating the Blue Jays because they don't look formidable. and they just scored barely enough runs to beat you by a run. Jim Palmer versus Clyde Wright. Footnote, Clyde Wright's left-handed. Baltimore decides to start 9 righties against him and put 3 lefties on the bench, including a very angry Boog Powell, who had to start the game on the bench, and he wasn't happy about that at all, and he let management, and then he let Earl Weaver know about it. Bottom of the first, Jim Palmer gives up 3 straight singles. Mike Lum leading the Blue Jays in hitting with the RBI single. In the 6th inning, a Paul Blair triple and Brooks the RBI single. We're tied at 1. It stays that way into the 9th. Neither team could hit a bull in the you-know-what with a shovel. In the 9th inning, here's your typical way the Blue Jays can try and win a game. You get a leadoff double by Milt May, a 1-8 runner, off of Jim Palmer's card. Palmer doesn't give up homers to lefties on his card. It's just a double. A Monson walk. Pinch hitter Hal Laniers a B bunter, so he bunts. Then what do you think happens with runners in 2nd and 3rd and 1 out with the infield up? Well, you roll catcher's card, and you roll the wild pitch on the catcher's card, and you lose the baseball game. What a discouraging way for Baltimore to lose 2 straight to the Blue Jays. Things have to change when the series moves to Baltimore, and it will. Game 3. Another lefty, Jerry Royce, against Dave McNally. And in this game, Boog Powell is inserted into the lineup along with Al Bunbury because Jerry Royce isn't particularly good against lefties. And oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, let me just skip to the highlights. In the bottom of the 2nd inning, batting 6th, your first baseman, Boog Powell, rolls 3-3, home run! Then in the 3rd inning, after 2 strikeouts, a single to Buford, a single to Leroy Stanton. Then Boog Powell rolls 3-3, home run! We're going to skip a few innings until the 7th. A single by Leroy Stanton. Then Boog Powell rolls 3-3, home run! Boog Powell! And the other at-bat in the 5th inning, he rolled 3-9, which is a single. Boog Powell, 4 for 4, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs after not starting the previous day. Baltimore wins 9-2. Telling Toronto, you guys don't belong here. There's something wrong with this picture. You don't belong, Toronto. We beat you 9-2. What do you think the Blue Jays think about that? Oh, they don't think much about it at all. They're the Blue Jays. Game 4. How about this matchup? Doyle Alexander, a gem in the Baltimore farm system. He starred for them in 1972. Doyle did. He was 6-8 with a 2.46 ERA in 106 innings. Of course, Baltimore, they can't protect all their guys, and they couldn't protect Doyle Alexander, nor could they protect Rorik Harrison, another nice pitcher. They lost them both in the expansion draft to Toronto. Bottom of the 1st, the Orioles strike blood first with an RBI single by, you guessed it, Boog Powell. 1-0. Top of 2, after a walk and a double play, a 2-out triple, but then Hal Lanier decides he's going to put a clinic on today. Hal Lanier, discarded by the Dodgers and the Giants, and yeah, hit 233. RBI single in this inning. In the 5th inning, a single, another single, runners on the corners. The Orioles, with runners on the corners, nobody out, they play back. And they, sure enough, as soon as you play back with runners on the corners, nobody out, your opponent's going to roll a 4-3. And the runner's going to score on that ground ball. And that's going to be it for Baltimore's offense. The Blue Jays get a 2-run homer by Tommy A.G. This is almost like looking like the '69 Mets beating the Orioles here. Tommy A.G. and Don Clendenin on this Blue Jay team, former Oriole pitchers on this Blue Jay team. Blue Jays win 4-1. They've won 3 out of 4, befuddling Major League Baseball to this point. So today, in Baltimore, we have a Game 5. Orioles need to rip off 3 straight wins. Of course, they're all in great shape. They'll probably all make the playoffs. But the Orioles will be in first place at the All-Star break, regardless of what happens. They'd be a half game ahead of the Blue Jays, lose the tiebreaker to the Blue Jays. Yeah. The Expos winning percentage has them as the #1 seed going into the All-Star break. But, yeah, a lot to play for. My goodness. Would love to see Toronto, Baltimore, and New York all make the playoffs in the American League. 3 teams from one division doesn't happen very often. So, today's starting pitchers, we'll have that right after this moment. All right, let's get started from Baltimore. Your pitchers today: Carl Morton for the Blue Jays. He won the first game. He does have an extra day of rest. 16-12, 2.75 ERA for Atlanta in 74. And for Baltimore, Jim Palmer. Yep, it's going to come back on short rest after the disappointing loss in Game 2. 22-9, 2.40 ERA, and a Cy Young in 1973. Jim Palmer, magnificent card. Really like this card for Palmer, as no homers against lefties. And, yeah, it's one of the better Palmer cards you're going to find, even though his ERA is not the lowest you'll find. Interesting. Let's get started from Baltimore, as the Blue Jays try and win this series 4-1 on the road. Leading off is Tommy A.G. 112, hit by the pitch. Oh boy. Palmer plunks him. Immediately, Tim Foley's going to hit and run. And it's going to be a pop out. That didn't work. Now it's Mike Lum. 67 is a pop to second with 2 outs. Clendenon. 37 is a base hit in a center field. 1 Met for another Met. AG. 15 runner. 17. You don't like to make the final out of third base, particularly against a -2 arm, so we'll stay at second with 2 outs for Milt May. Milt May, 1-7, strikes out. Don Buford leads off today for the Orioles, 6-11. Pitcher X. Morton's an E5. My goodness. It's a base hit anyway on the 2E5 pitcher. Buford's a B-stealer, but Milt May's actually got a good throwing arm, so he'll stay put. Bobby Grich. 62, short X. It's going to be trouble. Shortstop's at 2E29. And that is your GBA, Tim Foley. So I'm telling you, folks, this is what the Blue Jays do. They lull you in a sleep, and you don't realize you're not beating them very badly or losing to them. Al Bumbry, 2.8 grounds a second. I'm curious to find out what the net runs is for the Blue Jays. How many more runs they've scored than their opponent. We'll look at that in the post game. Top of the second inning, it'll be Jim Brazil. 46, all Palmer's a walk. Dan Monzon, 67's a strikeout. Bill Voss, 2-7's a base hit to right field. Brazil will hold at second. 2 on, 1 out for Darrell Chaney. 37's a K, back up top to Tommy A.G. 63. Second X, Bobby Grich is a 1E20, and he makes the play. Bottom of the second, it's Brooks Robinson. 2-8, let's take a look at your Gold Glove Hall of Fame third baseman, Mr. Oriole, Brooks Robinson's interesting 1971. 20 home runs and a .272 batting average. Gold Glove defense at third. Curiously, no power against lefties, which is disappointing, but that also means plenty of power versus righties. Homer 19 on 9 and 10. That's a ton of home runs for Brooksy. He rolls an 8, though, which is double 1 of 10, and gets a base hit. And here he is, your Book Pal. Give me a 3-3 for all your fans on YouTube. 1-8 is ball 4. 2 on for Earl Williams. 62, short X. Oh boy, Earl. But he gets a huge break. The E29 Foley kicks that ground ball and loads the bases. For Paul Blair, infield has to come up as an A-bunter. 2-10 for Blair, lefty question mark. Brooksy, a 10, 11, 12, -2 arm, no thanks. We'll go for the big inning. We're not going to get thrown out at the plate here. Tom Chopay is your batter with 1 out. 1-8, oh, there's a strikeout. And with 2 outs, it's Frank Duffy. Ooh, Frank Duffy. 49. He gets a single off the Carl Morton card to center field. Boog Powell, 10 runner. 11-12 against AG's -3. Oh boy, that's a 9 chance. Let's do it on a 9. And he's throwing out the plate. Well, it was fun to see the big guy lumber around. Home manager, I can run anything I want to, and I decided to try it there. It didn't work. Trying to get some extra runs against these Blue Jays. They're just such a pain in the neck, this Blue Jay team. Anyway, they get a run. Powell gets thrown out the plate. And the inning is over. Unearned run, 1-zip Baltimore. Top of the third, Tim Foley. 1-3 for Foley, flies to right. Mike Lum, 1-8 is a walk. Don Clendenon, 1-7 is a K, and with 2 outs, it's Milt May, 32, second. Top of the third inning. One of the other reasons why we ran Boog Powell, we wanted Buford to lead off an inning because he has lots of walks on his card, more than hits. Buford, 66 off Morton, is a sky to center field. Bobby Grich, 35 is a hit by the pitch. B. Steeler being held on for Al Bunbury. 49, base hit, ... Runners on the corners. They will bring the infield up for Brooks Robinson. 2-6 is short B. Smart move by the Blue Jays. Runner cut down at the plate. First and second, 1 out for, hey, your Boog Powell. 65 flies to center field. All this by the Orioles, it's just a 1-0 game. Into the fourth, it's Jim Brazil. 2-8 is a roller to first. Dan Monson, 1-8 K. Bill Voss, 3-9 is a walk. And Darrell Cheney. 4-10 center X. 187 is Paul Blair. You know, I was just thinking here, the Dan Monson, the DH for this team, he was a Minnesota Twin. You know, all these guys are on different major league teams, of course. So he was a Minnesota Twin in '72 with 55 at-bats. He's actually going to have more at-bats in my Strat-O-Matic League for a team other than the Minnesota Twins in this season and maybe the next season and the previous one. So we're going to see more of a sample of Dan Monson than his entire career as a member of the Toronto Blue Jays, which is very strange. Barely made the radar of the Minnesota Twins, but will be huge on the radar of the Toronto Blue Jays. Bottom of the fourth, it'll be Earl Williams. 63 first X. Earl Williams traded in the offseason for Davey Johnson because of the home runs, the 33 home runs, and he has not done a thing, and another ground out. We'll look at his stats too. Mental note, Earl Williams' stats and the net runs of the Blue Jays. Paul Blair, 39 walk. A Steeler. Let's have Chopay hit and run. Runner moves up. Oh no, runner's got to try to steal. That's right. And the runner is going to be out. Stealing. That didn't work. And now Chopay has to swing away. 44. Center X. And this is AG at 2-8 in center. And he makes the catch. Well, the strategic moves aren't working. Guy gets thrown out the plate. Hit and run doesn't work. Guy gets caught stealing. Yeah. So Baltimore still just with a 1-0 lead in the fifth. Tommy A.G. 1-5, bounce to short. Foley, 54. Homer, 1-14 double. A guy without power misses the 14, so he gets the double. That's advantageous. Mike Long, 48, second X. Should have been a double play ball, but he's not on first base. And he's a 1-20. So now you have Foley at third with 2 outs. And Clendenon, 2-5 is a K. Palmer, nice little outing, putting guys on base, but just giving up 3 hits through 5 frames. Bottom of the fifth, let's pause a moment for station identification.
This is the Shrimp Trawler video channel.
Este es el canal de videos de camaroneros.
Okay, a 1-0 game in Baltimore in Game 5. It'll be Frank Duffy. 2-6 is a grounder to short. Don Buford, 2-11, rolls back to the mound, and Bobby Grich pops to first base, and Carl Morton is matching Palmer. Matter of fact, the Blue Jays have a few more base runners than the Orioles in this one, trail by a run. Into the 6th we go. It's Milt May. 3-5. Let's take a look at the Milt May card of 1971. He is a Pirate, which, folks, means that this is a World Series winning catcher who obviously would not be protected by the Pirates, who had Manny Sanguillen. And who else but the Blue Jays swoop in and grab him, folks. Symmetrical card. Strat-O-Matic doesn't normally do that with such a small percentage against lefties. But they gave him symmetry, which makes him a full-time player for an expansion team, and a dangerous one, and a good throwing catcher as well. What's not to like about Milt May? Home run, game is tied. Jim Brazil. 1-6. Now let's take a look at the next hitter after May, Jim Brazil. You're seeing this, folks. You're seeing how this team is actually put together pretty darn good. This Jim Brazil guy had a grand total of 85 at-bats in 1972. Comes as no surprise that that is with the Atlanta Braves, where everybody's stats are inflated, homers and batting average. Here, Brazil had 5 home runs and a .247 average. He has symmetry as well, even though it's only 2% against lefties, and has homers on 5 and 6, and that is gone. And maybe you're now starting to see why these Blue Jays are winning so many games. They just pick the right guy to fill in the right spot. I'm sure there have plenty of weaknesses on this team, but they seem to hide them. And folks, their Orioles are 12 outs away from losing the series 4-1. Dan Monson in a 2-1 game. 1-7 base hit. Bill Voss, 32, flies to center. Darrell Chaney, 38, is a K. And Tommy A.G., 58 off Palmer, short X. Duffy's a 3-8 E18 at short, makes the play. 2-1, Baltimore needs to get on their horse, or they will stumble into the All-Star break in the American League East. Carl Morton, 1 unearned run through 5 frames. He continues into the 6th with Al Bumbry. 2-9, rolls short. Brooks Robinson, 67, lines to short. And with 2 outs, it's hey, your Boog pal. 5-11 is a walk. And it's Earl Williams. Waiting for one of his 33 home runs. Will it be now? 1-10, let's take a look at the card. It's close. You can see why Baltimore would make the deal. Hoping you get the 33 home runs, particularly against righties. Devastating amount of homers against right-handed pitching. And they have this card just for 1 more year, and then it'll really turn into a pumpkin, but at least they get this card. 110 is double 1-2, single ... Runners on the corners in a 2-1 game, and it's Paul Blair. 3-11, and it's a pop to first base. Into the 7th we go. Tim Foley. 4-4, flies to right. Mike Lum, 32, fouls to the catcher. And Don Clendenon, 38, single on a 1, lines to short. I think the Orioles, they're uncomfortable when they see AG and Clendenon on the other team on the field. And they get an uneasy feeling here. Stretch time in Baltimore of a 2-1 game. You have been listening to Crack the Sky, 1975. Their LP simply titled Crack the Sky. This band was often played on the radio in Maryland and in Baltimore in the timeline here, so we use that for Oriole games a lot of the time. Bottom of the 7th, 2-1. Fans in Baltimore are nervous here. Their team has been in first all year, but this Blue Jay team just creates so much drama. Bottom of the 7th, and Tom Chopay will lead it off. 67 off Morton is a liner to second. Frank Duffy. 2-3, flies to right. And back up top to Don Buford. 56, flies to right field. Carl Morton is going to try and beat Baltimore twice in 5 days. Baltimore came into this series only losing 5 games all year. Into the 8th, 2-1, and here we go. May in Brazil again. Milt May. 59, grounds to second. Jim Brazil. 2-7 is a K, and with 2 outs, Dan Monson, 45, pops to first. Now around to defense. Hal Lanier will come in for Monson and play third base, as he's a 2 third baseman. And actually, that will be the only replacement. Into the bottom of the 8th of a 2-1 game. Carl Morton puts a guy on and probably hook him. Don't want to see this guy lose after this amazing effort. They do have all-star closer Joe Grisenda out there, plus Elias Sosa in the Blue Jay bullpen. It's Bobby Grich leading off. 38 for Grich is a strikeout. Al Bumbry, your 1973 American League Rookie of the Year. 59. There you go. Double 1 of 14 off the Morton card. Can't get it. It's a single. You got speed at first. And you got Brooks Robinson. Talked about all that power. I think I might go Joe Grisenda here for a 5-out save. Because I talked about Brooks, he doesn't have power against lefties, and he's followed by Boog Powell and Earl Williams, and they're both all better against righties. That's what they're going to do, folks. They are pulling the plug right here, Carl Morton. They're playing the percentages, and they're going to bring in all-star closer Joe Grisenda. Who? Joe Grisenda, member of the 71 Washington Senators, 5-2 with a 1.93 ERA in 1970. Of course, the Blue Jays selected him in the expansion draft. And he's been to the All-Star game in previous years for the Blue Jays, often as their lone representative. And you often find that if you get a closer on a crappy team traditionally, their stats are the best because they only pitch in games where they get a save chance. And that's what Grisenda did in previous years for the Blue Jays. Now his save chances are more meaningful as they're winning more. Funny part about it is, his save chances are fewer because the Blue Jays are winning more games without even needing him. So it's been kind of a opportunity for Grisenda to take some time off and still get some wins. He will face Brooks Robinson with Bumbry at first and 1 out in a 2-1 game. And now the strategy might change a little bit. Knowing that Grisenda is a heck of a pitcher and Brooksy doesn't have power, he's thinking of hitting and running here as a B-hit runner with the speedy Bumbry at first. He is going to execute a 1-out hit and run. And here we go with a hit and run. Rolls a 7, which means Bumbry's got to take off as Brooksy swings through it. And he rolls a 5 on the steal, so he steals second base. So that time, the hit and run didn't work, but Bumbry got the steal anyway. He's on second now with 1 out, so now Brooksy will swing away. 3-7, you saw Brooksy's card. It's single to center field. Bumbry, a 17 runner, got a run now on a 14 against the -3 armor AG. There's no tomorrow here, even if it's just 1 out. He's going to run on a 14, and he's thrown out of the plate on an 18. Al Bumbry trying to tie this thing on a 14 for the home team, and he can't even make it. Thrown out. The Blue Jay Shamrock continues. The 4-leaf clover, the lucky horseshoe of the Toronto Blue Jays just continues. And again, former Met Tommy A.G. demonizes Baltimore here. Brooksy's at first with 2 outs. And it's Boog Powell. 1-8 is ball 4. 2 on and 2 outs for Earl Williams. Still looking for one of those big home runs. 2-7 Earl Williams. Single 1-6 against a lefty. And of course, he is going to miss that. This is a single off a right-handed pitcher. And again, the Blue Jays just keep making the right calls, and they execute, and they get the lucky breaks. It's their world. We're living in it, folks. 2-1 into the 9th we go. Jim Palmer, a starter 9, completely confused as to why he's only given up a couple of runs in 2 starts and has nothing to show for it here. He's arguably still going to the All-Star game for the American League as their starting pitcher. But anyway, it'll be Bill Voss leading off for the 9th. 58 lines the 3rd. Darrell Chaney. 210 is a base hit. Tommy A.G. Blue Jays looking for an insurance run. 311, fly ball to right plus injury. Well, interesting. So A.G. has to leave the game as your outstanding center fielder. Isn't that amusing? The guy who just threw Al Bunbury out the plate, in the following inning, he gets an injury and has to leave. So Baltimore doesn't get that running opportunity with the weaker arm center fielder about to emerge. Just weird stuff for the Blue Jays, folks. Ivan Morel, speaking of which, is a +1 arm center fielder. Will take over for Morel. Will take over for AG. And with 2 outs, it's Tim Foley. 2-8, double 1, single ... Runners on the corners, 2 outs, and it's Mike Lum. 1-6, because it's 2 outs, Mike Lum actually will have to get a hit. Let's take a look at the Mike Lum card, leading the Blue Jays in hitting this year. 294 with the Braves. Again, the Braves, Mets, former Orioles. The Braves, 294, 16 home runs. Former Brave Earl Williams is doing nothing for the Orioles. So the torturous Braves, Mets, and ex-Orioles are ruining Baltimore's season. 1-6 is a single. That will score Chaney with the insurance run. It may as well be 10-1. 2 outs. Palmer's just broken. He leads the game. You just can't believe it. He's going to leave the game 8 2/3. Grant Jackson will try and get the final out and keep it a 2-run affair in the 9th inning. Baltimore is mostly known during the era as being this team to steal wins with a long ball, good defense, timely hitting, and they're getting beat at their own game by a replica of themselves and the Mets, and yeah, interesting. Grant Jackson will face Clendenon with 2 outs in the 9th and 2 runners aboard. Here's the pitch. 56 is a bouncer to short. We have Duffy, a 318 E18 at shortstop today, and he makes the play. Bottom of the 9th, 3-1, making it even easier for Grisenda to get the save. It'll be Paul Blair leading it off. All the defenses in the game. Paul Blair. 1-7. Let's take a look at the Paul Blair card, folks. 1974. Blair hit 17 homers and 261. He rolls a 1-7. And there it is. It is gone. And you see that insurance run, how big it's now looking. 3-2. Tom Chopay will exit. Batting for Tom Chopay will be Leroy Stanton. The pitch to Leroy Stanton. 65 off Grisenda, flies to right. Number 9 hitter Frank Duffy. 66 pops to first, and with 2 outs, back up top to Don Buford. Let's take a look at him and Baltimore's last chance. Buford, 1971, arguably his best year. Hit 290, 19 homers, the 89 walks for Buford. The pitch here to Don Buford. 2-4, bounces to short. And yeah, the Paul Blair homer in the bottom of the 9th, of course, gets wasted. As the Blue Jays, another 1-run win. They win this game 3-2. A 5-out save for Grisenda. The Blue Jays have just beaten the Orioles 4-1. And what a tasty American League East. No idea how it's going to play out, but all 3 teams probably should go to the playoffs. Palmer loses another game. 9 hits and 3 runs. 4 walks, 8 strikeouts. Grisenda gets the save. He gave up a single, a walk, and a solo home run. So there's 2 hits, a run, and a walk. Carl Morton gets another win. 6 hits, a single run. It was unearned. 4 walks, a couple strikeouts. 1019, 0109, 3928. 4852, 5248. It's not like things are doom and gloom for Baltimore because they have played so well earlier this year. It's just a little disappointing to fall 4 games to 1 and start to have doubts about your team. And I'm looking at this Baltimore club. They're not very good against left-handed pitching, for one. And generally, most of their hitters are just okay at best and have passed their prime. Their pitching is magnificent, however. You don't have Mark Belanger playing short, and you end up with Frank Duffy and Bobby Wine on the team. So Baltimore is 17-9, hitting .258 with a .222 ERA. Stunning ERA. Jim Palmer, you might be wondering, is 5-4, but talk about 17 runs in 74 innings. He's got a sparkling .206 ERA. Dave McNally's 5-0 with 10 runs in 42 innings. .214 ERA. Yeah. 7 homers for Boog Powell, 3 of them in 1 game. 20 RBIs, leads the club. Otherwise, he's 21 for 91, which is hitting, what, 220? 231. Earl Williams has brought 2 home runs to the Orioles. Congratulations, Earl. You got 31 more to go. 2 home runs for Earl Williams to this point. Brooksy having a nice little year. He's got 5 homers and 18 RBIs. He's 33 for 103. Probably should go to the All-Star game for the Orioles. At that position, you would think, but we'll see. Let's go to Toronto and see how they have made the magic this year. The Blue Jays are now 17-10, just a half game out of first place. Incredible. They are hitting .252. They have a .332 team ERA. Grisenda, 2-1 with 7 saves. He's actually got an ERA of about 3 this year, which is not that good for him. Carl Morton's 5-1. Alexander's 3-2. Looking at the power, Brazil's got 6 homers. Clendenon has 5. Milt May only has 3. We talked about the big year of Mike Lum leading the club in hitting. He's 37 for 109. Batting 3rd all year and hitting .339. Folks, Mike Lum's going to the All-Star game for a 17-10 squad. So congratulations to Mike Lum, having the best year ever, and it was the best year of his career with that card. So good for him. We talked about the net runs for the Blue Jays. Your Toronto Blue Jays have scored 111 runs this year, and they've given up 106 runs. They're plus 5 runs on a team that's 7 games over 500. That's just really, really, really lucky. In the American League East, the Yankees hitting .253 with a .296 ERA. We talked about Baltimore, .258 and .222. And even your Red Sox, they're only hitting .220 with a .363 ERA. Well, that's right there. If the Red Sox are hitting .220, they're wasting everybody's time and not showing up and participating this year. There's no reason why the Red Sox should hit .220 in Fenway Park over 22 games, but that's what's happened. So, fortunately, the Yankees and Red Sox still have to battle. You can see now that the Blue Jays are currently a half game back and in second with the Yankees a game out. The Yankees have a chance to be in first place at the All-Star break because they still have to play Boston. The Yankees, if they beat the Red Sox 4-2, they would be tied with the Orioles. Or 4-1 or sweep them, they'd be in first by themselves. Half a game behind Toronto, so if they beat the Red Sox 4-3 in a 7-game series, they'd be tied with Toronto. What's interesting is in the postseason tournament first round, the first place and second place teams will meet to decide who's in first. So that could come out to be very important because it could also mean who becomes a division winner and who becomes a wild card. So there's still a whole lot to play for in the East. The Yankees are probably pretty happy that Toronto did what they did and made this a wild and crazy second half of the season. So that's it for today, folks. Break up your Toronto Blue Jays, continuing a remarkable performance. 4-1 winners over the Baltimore Orioles. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.